All right, so I already decorated this house using Photoshop with a variety of abstract designs. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over how I created some of the designs and some of the distinct possibilities in Photoshop. So this is the house, and this is a template for adding an additional story to the same size house. So they're just, you would print them on cardstock, fold them, and cut them out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do select color range, and I'm going to just use the eyedropper to select the white. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to make sure my layer is unlocked, and then I'm going to just do edit, cut, edit, paste. And so this layer has the white in it, and this layer has the lines in it. Now I'm going to switch them. I'm going to put the white layer on the top, on the bottom, and the line layer on the top. I'm going to fill the white layer with white. I'm just going to do edit, fill, white. And now I have a layer of white and a line layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rename this layer white, and then I'm going to lock it, and I'll rename this layer line, and I'm going to lock it. And now in between is where I'm going to add all sorts of colors. So I'm just going to go down here and add another layer for colors. So if I go up to the line layer and I use my magic wand tool and I select this shape, but I don't fill it in the line layer, I'm going to go to the layer below and fill it there. And I'm just going to do, I'm going to use my brush tool, and I think I'm going to use red as my foreground color, but I could pick any color I want. I'll pick something pretty. All right, blue, I guess. All right, now, if I go here to symmetry, I'm going to go down here to mandala, okay? And it says segment count. So I'm going to make the segment count 8. And it gives me like this 8-sided star. So I'm just going to make it smaller, and I'm going to bring it inside here, and this is where I'm going to be doing my drawing. So I'm going to go to my brush tool, and I'm just going to make a little circle here, and it'll repeat 8 times. And whatever I do in one line will repeat 8 times around. Now what I can do is I can switch colors. So I decided to go with like a pretty yellow color. And I can also change the width of the line, make it fatter or thinner. So again, whatever I do will get repeated. So the nice thing about that is, let's say I switch colors again to a red, and then I make my brush thinner. I can color on top of color, and it looks really, really pretty and interesting. So now I'm going to, before I forget, turn the symmetry off, because that can mess you up. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do layer, duplicate layer. Okay. Now the copy is on the top, so I'm going to now do edit, transform, path, and I'm going to go to scale. Now if you hold the option key, instead of it shrinking off to the side, it'll actually shrink right into the middle. So that gives you a nice thing. You can do edit, transform, scale, and then you can do edit, transform, rotate. And you can actually rotate it. And I'll hit the check mark, and then I'll do select, deselect. And you can see how I just made these really pretty patterns. Now what I'm going to do is down here underneath, I'm going to add a new layer. I'll just go down here and add a new layer. I'm going to go up to the line layer again, grab my magic wand, select this area. Now I'm going to go down to layer 2, which is the layer I just created, and I'm going to do edit, fill, black. And that is really nice because it sort of sets off everything. So select, deselect, that is one way that I can really play around with fun designs. Now, it actually works even on the side that has the windows. So if I go up to the line layer and I use the magic wand and then I add a new layer underneath, so I'm going to just add a new layer, I can make designs and it won't fill in the windows. And again, it's underneath the line layer, but I made the selection up here that included the windows. So I'm going to play around with doing edit fill black, and then I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to, in that new layer, do edit fill color. And I think I'll pick like a red. Okay, so now I've got the red on top of the black. And I'm keeping everything selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now use the smudge tool, and I'm going to smudge down. And the nice thing is, I'm just using my mouse. I'm not even using a tablet. But the lovely thing about this is that it's not smudging into those windows. You can change the strength. I can make it stronger. And the smudge tool is like any other tool in that you can make a larger smudge or a smaller smudge. So now it looks almost like the walls are dripping paint, but it's not getting inside the windows. So that's a fun thing to do. So select, deselect. So now I've showed you two different techniques. I'm going to go now to the next wall, and I'm going to select it with my magic wand, and then I'm going to go here and add another layer. So now I'm in this new layer, and I'm going to just scribble a bunch of patterns. I think I will use the paintbrush tool, and I think I will use the spiral symmetry. So I'm just going to put it in this space. If you want to change the size to distort it to the space, if you hold the shift key, it'll allow you to stretch it. So now everything is going to stay within this space. I go back to my brush tool, and I've got the red brush, which I think is fine. And you can see that it just draws my lines around that spiral, but it does not go into the windows. So that's kind of nice. I can play around with a bunch of different pretty colors. It's really easy to accidentally make it look like a scribbly mess. But I'm going to actually just experiment with a bunch of colors, because I can remember it's Photoshop. You can always undo it or delete an entire layer. So I've got sort of these ribbons of silly color here. Now, this is where it gets fun. I'm going to go up to the filter, and I'm going to go to distort, and then I'm going to go to twirl. And you can see that you can twirl it. So I'm just going to really twirl it a lot, but the twirl stays within that selected area. The other thing you can do is you can do filter, distort, wave. And you can see that you can play around with the wavelengths and really make it almost look like a liquid. And if you do it too much, it's gonna not really look good. But if you can do it just so, it'll look really interesting. So let me hit OK. And now I've got this neat ripple. Now I'm going to go to the layer underneath it, and I'm going to add a new layer, and then I'm going to do edit fill black. And I think that just kind of sets it off, giving it that black background. select, deselect. All right. So I've already showed you a few different ways to create patterns. Now I'm going to start playing around with blending modes. So let's do that. I'm going to go up to the line layer. I'm going to just select this rectangle. I'm going to add a new layer underneath it, and I'm going to do edit, fill, color. I'll pick that bright red again. Okay. And now on top of it, I'm going to add a new layer. And in that new layer, still it's selected, so it's only going to stay inside there. I'm going to go back to the brush tool. And I think I'm going to try for a radial symmetry. Segment counts. Let's do 10. Okay. So let's bring it in here. Let's make it fit our space. I think that's fine. And now let me go back to the brush tool. And this time I think I'm going to zoom in here so I can see what's going on before I do this. So sorry about that. Brush tool, radial, make it 10. Okay, bring it in here, make it fit. All right, back to the brush tool, and you can see that you can keep switching colors and make some really funky, fun patterns. So I'll just keep doing that. Okay, so I think I'd like to add a filter to it. So let's just do filter. Let's see, I'm looking for an interesting spherize. Yeah, I think I'm going to go distort, spherize. And that can be really, really fun. So I'm going to just spherize it. And then I'm going to do filter, distort. And I'm going to spherize it again. And that really kind of, it's almost like it's on the surface of a balloon, and I blew up the balloon. So now I'm going to duplicate this layer, duplicate layer, and the top layer, I'm going to just do image adjustments, and I'm going to cancel. How about adjustments, hue, saturation? And if I mess around with the hue, you can see that it can be completely change the colors. So I like that. I think that's neat. And the saturation, that makes the colors even more intense. So now, this is where I promised you that I would play around with blending modes. I've got this and I've got this. So what happens when I change how those two layers interact with each other? So that's where you get into the blending modes. So I'm going from normal to dissolve to darken to multiply to color burn to lighten, color dodge. So this is color dodge, and this was normal. Okay. I think in this case I like it as normal, but you just know that these color blending modes kind of take two layers and they change how they interact with each other. So if it works really well if you've got one color on top of another color. But anyway, I actually think that what I'm going to do is edit, transform, and I'm going to change the scale. Now, if I hold down the Option key, I can make my top layer smaller, and then I can actually rotate it. You can see that you can get some very playful designs here. And now when I do the blending mode, you can really see how the two colors interact with each other. And I move it, you can see that the colors interact differently depending on what they are on top of. So that can be really fun. As a matter of fact, I can duplicate this layer and move the duplicate around to a different spot and have the colors dodge each other in a different way. Confusing and weird, but it also could look like fireworks. So I'm not sure I like it. But it's good to experiment and play around in the hopes that you will, let me see, duplicate layer, that you will find something unexpected or new. Now, the other thing is you can take each one of these and you can do image adjustments, hue, saturation, and change the hue of each one. You don't have to keep them the same. So this one could be this hue, image adjustments, hue, saturation, and this one could be this hue, and you can get some very lively patterns. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you should really experiment in Photoshop with the different possibilities. Play around with filters, play around with blending modes, play around with symmetry, play around with smudging one color on top of another, and really see what you can come up with. See if you can get some very interesting abstract art going here. And then when you fold it and you put them together, come up with an overall aesthetic. Like for my designs, I played around with a black background because I think it'll kind of unify the designs. So if you can come up with an idea like bright colors on top of black background, and you can keep that consistent throughout all your designs, I think you'll have a building that is not too busy, but yet has a lot of abstract designs and is colorful enough to be interesting. When you're done, you export it as a JPEG. I will be happy to print them out for you, and we can spend some time cutting them out and assembling them.